Greetings, hungry nerds, Ed here, back again with another movie review. This time we're talking about Midsommar, the second full-length feature from writer-director Ari Aster. It stars Florence Pugh, and I was looking forward to this movie. I loved Hereditary a lot. It scared the shit out of me, and it really stuck with me. Okay, so spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie yet, there are going to be heavy spoilers throughout this whole video, so be warned. But if you have seen the movie, then welcome. We're going to talk about Midsommar. So I was really looking forward to Midsommar. Ari Aster is a very talented filmmaker, and he has a way of disturbing you, making you think, making you talk about his movies, and really leaving an impression. I left Hereditary feeling like almost disoriented, and the same thing happened with this movie too. I left the theater after watching Midsommar, and I felt almost disoriented. And up until now, I feel like I've needed more time to sit on this movie. However, the more I think about it, the more I say, this is a good thing. I mean, the movie served its purpose, and it's making us think, it's making us talk. And I will say that I was kind of disappointed in my initial expectations of this movie, especially after Hereditary, but we can't really compare Midsommar to Hereditary or other films that are similar in style and storyline. And so I'll try to look at this movie as its own standalone, not compared to Hereditary or The Wicker Man or anywhere else that influences may be kind of obvious. It's the feel-good summer movie of 2019. This is Black Hole Sun the movie. Okay, I'm kidding about the Black Hole Sun thing. There were a few effects throughout this movie that reminded me of the Soundgarden Black Hole Sun music video, especially when like the eyes just bulge ever so slightly and the smile's just a little wider than it naturally should be. Okay, so this movie opens up with a phone call, and it is painfully realistic and awkward, and you could just read right off the bat that this couple is doomed. This couple of Danny and Christian, they're in trouble. Christian, he is checked out a long time ago. And, you know, you have his buddies who have been saying, you know, you've been thinking about breaking up with her for a while. However, Danny is going through a lot. She has some family issues happening. Her sister is in trouble, and she gets these cryptic emails from her sister. The whole setup for Danny going with Christian and his buddies to Sweden is the tragedy that happens to her family. So her sister ends up killing the parents. So right when this happens, I immediately think to Hereditary. And now, I'm not trying to compare the two movies, but this is just a style that I feel like is becoming consistent in Ari Aster's work. The way the sister kills herself and the family and her parents. So she gets two hoses from the exhaust pipes of the car and runs it up the stairs into the bedrooms. She duct tapes the bottom of the parents' bedroom door, so the carbon monoxide goes into the room and suffocates the parents. And then we see the sister sitting on the edge of her bed on the floor with the hose going all the way up to her mouth, and it's duct taped on the mouth. And of course Danny is messed up by this. Who wouldn't be? Now my only problem with this is that it almost feels like its own movie, like a precursor to Midsommar, because this is barely even mentioned again. So more relationship drama unfolds as Danny discovers that Christian is going to a festival for, what is it, a month and a half? In Sweden. He's leaving her in 2 weeks to go with his friends to Sweden, and she finds this out at a party. Again, like, this is too real for some people. It ends up that Christian does feel bad for Danny, and instead of breaking up with her, he invites her to Sweden. And the way they do this is, you know, he's trying to explain to his friends that, you know, I invited her, but she's not gonna come. She's gonna come. And so the friends are pretty ticked off about this, except for Pelle, played by Willem Bolgren. Bolgren. I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong. I apologize. They're college friends, and Pelle is from this village in Sweden, and so this festival is coming around, and he wants his friends to experience it. And so they're getting together, and he's the only one that's really sympathetic with Danny. Josh, Willem Jackson Harper's character, he's just like, he's not having it. He gets up, he goes to the other room, he's having coffee, he's like, I'm not about this. Will Poulter's character, Mark, he's not having it either. He wants to go to Sweden and get with some Swedish babes and eat mushrooms and pee on some ancient trees, and he's not having it. He's like, no girlfriends. I will say, I do like Josh's character, though, because it does break up the monotony of having a group of friends only looking to go to another country to party. So we're not having like some Euro trip situation where everybody's just going and tripping on shrooms. Josh is going there for a purpose. He's writing a thesis on this culture, and so he's going there to learn. However, spoilers, his curious nature and desire to learn ends up being his demise. So one of my problems with this movie is that it's a little slow. Aside from Danny's family tragedy, not a lot happens in the first act of the movie until they arrive in Sweden, and then they start off their trip by taking some mushrooms. But one of the cool things about this movie, which I was kind of bummed about because they never mentioned this again either, is that they're tripping out, they're sitting under the tree and everything, and it's bright out, the sun is out, and they say that it's 9 p.m. And that never is mentioned again. Like, it does get dark out later, and so Danny has a bad trip, like a really bad trip. She freaks out and she runs away from the group, and she goes to this little outhouse, like out in the side or whatever, and she's in there and it's dark, and then we get like a little bit of a jump scare. And there aren't a lot of jump scares in this movie, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about Ari Aster's Midsommar as well as Hereditary, is that he doesn't rely on jump scares to scare you. Instead, he uses the environment and the atmosphere to creep you out and disturb you. But there's a little jump scare, and there's a little girl like in the back when she like when Danny looks in the mirror, and that's it. The first and I think most shocking scene in this movie is the beginning of the festivities. Actually, I think it's day 2, but this is like the kickoff of everything. So the elders, when they reach 72, this is their winter time, and it's time for them to clock out, and they do it ceremoniously. So we have everybody in this village at the base of this cliff. Everybody's down at the bottom, and they're all dressed in white. And we have our group from America. We have Danny, Christian, Mark, Pele is there, Josh, everyone's there. And then there's this couple from London who was brought along by Pele's cousin, and they're outsiders too. So we have two groups of outsiders, and they're standing at the base of this cliff. And so two of the elders go to the top of this cliff, and they cut their hands, and they put the blood on the stone like we saw in the trailers. And then, I mean, this is pretty predictable, but they leap from this cliff, and they're clocking out. The woman goes first, and she just goes face first into a stone, and it's like slow motion. You see her skull just open up, and everything just comes out, and it's graphic. It sticks with you. It's like the light pole scene in Hereditary, except it keeps going. So the man, it's his turn, and he jumps, but he doesn't go face first. He misses the rock, and he breaks his legs, and they're shattered. And so he's there, and just his legs are split open. And of course, the person there from the village who's standing there with the big mallet thing, I mean, we saw this coming. So the guy's not dead, and they go whack, just one like quick swing, and the guy's head is just mush. It was kind of like when Michael curb stomped new Dr. Loomis in Halloween 2018, except this was much more graphic. And the camera, and this is the thing with a lot of these disturbing shots, is that the camera stays on what's happening. It doesn't cut away quickly. They swing the hammer once, and then he passes it to the next person, and she takes a swing. And then they pass it to the next person, and this keeps going. And so our outsiders are freaking out, as you would be. And everybody who's from the village is just standing there acting normal, like, this is good, this is good. And they're like jealous, they're envious that these people are experiencing this grisly death. And so the outsiders are freaking out, especially the couple from London. They're losing their shit. And I'm sitting in the theater, I'm like, relax, they're gonna be onto you. They're like, if you don't calm down, you guys are gonna be next. So this is the first part of the Once Every 90 Year Festival. The next part is a predetermined procreation. So they set up like, so the whole reason they're bringing these outsiders in is because the community is so small, and inbreeding is part of like their procreation, and that also goes into like the sacred text that they're reading from, which Josh's character has a fascination with. Spoilers. He wants to take pictures and like document everything from the book. They tell him he's not allowed to. He's not allowed to take pictures, but he goes later on and he does it anyway, and they off him. However, these books, they're written by these inbred members of their society, and they're inbred on purpose. Something about clouding their judgment or their mental state or whatever. They're supposed to be pure or something like that. Anyway, that's part of it. And so the whole reason they're bringing the outsiders in is to procreate and not have inbreeding. However, Christian, he's chosen, I guess by the elders or by whatever force of nature is happening there. He's chosen to mate with one of the redhead girls in this society. Ultimately, he does. And so this brings us to one of our lessons of the movie. Don't cheat if you're in a relationship, no matter how shitty it is, because bad things will happen to you. So this scene, they drug Christian and they bring him into the room, and there are naked women of varying ages surrounding the younger redhead who has been chosen to procreate, and it is awkward. And people in the theater were like laughing at this scene, and this scene wasn't played to be funny. And that's the thing about this movie, actually, which, again, to compare to Hereditary, there were no jokes in Hereditary at all. However, there were a few moments in this movie that were played for comic relief. Specifically, Will Poulter's character. There were a few jokes in this movie that, made people chuckle. This scene with the drugged out procreation was not one of them, but people were cracking up in the theater. It was awkward and it was drawn out, especially when one of the elders goes around to Christian as he's like almost finished, and they start pressing on him from behind to keep going. Everybody in this community is highly in tune with everybody else. They feel each other's pain, they feel each other's pleasure, and so in this scene, when they're moaning and everything's going on, they're all doing it together. They're feeling what's happening, and so Danny hears all the commotion from outside after she's crowned the May Queen. That's another aspect of... I'm sorry, this review is all over the place. But Danny is crowned the May Queen, which is another tradition. And so the people with Danny are taking her to another location, but she hears everything going on in there with Christian and the redhead. I don't know what her name is, but she hears that all going on, and of course she catches Christian cheating on her. Danny is devastated, highly upset, and she runs away to another room, and she's crying, and the people who are with her run with her, and they're crying too, and everyone is just in unison, and everyone's crying and grieving, and they're feeling each other's pain. Part of Danny's duties as the May Queen is to choose 5 of the 9 sacrifices, human sacrifices, to just cap off the end of this festival. 2 of the sacrifices are volunteers, and they're people who were from the community. And so Danny, of course, chooses Christian because he just cheated on her, so fuck you, Christian. The 9 sacrifices are put in a room. Christian is in the center, and he's in a bear. Not a costume. It's a bear. It's a bear that has been gutted. And he's wearing it, and he's in the center there. And Josh is in there because they killed him because he was not following the rules. Mark is in there, and he's been skinned alive. They turned him essentially into the Scarecrow. He's in there because he disrespected their culture by peeing on the tree, so he's one of the sacrifices. And the 2 volunteers from the community are in there, and they're giving them like this drug on the tongue, and this actually made me chuckle a little bit because this drug was supposed to numb the pain when they set this place on fire. However, as soon as the fire touches them, they're screaming in agony. And so the movie ends with this room, this house, burning up with Christian and everyone in it. And Danny's out there in the flowers, in the traditional May Queen attire, and she's smiling, and that's the end of the movie. And so I left this movie feeling confused and disoriented, and I was walking and just felt like I was gonna walk into people. Like, everybody left the theater and nobody said a word. And so I'm still sitting on this movie. It's been a few days since I've seen it. I feel like I should see it again, but I don't want to. I'll probably end up watching it again at some point, but this is a movie that definitely leaves an impact. Same as Hereditary. That's one thing that Ari Aster does well, is that he leaves an impact with his films. Now, the cinematography, the colors, the framing of shots, like the use of mirrors, that sort of thing, you can tell that Ari Aster kind of pulls some influence from Stanley Kubrick. All of these aspects of this film make it a beautiful film. It's so well made. Ari Aster is a very talented filmmaker. However, I feel like part of this story just didn't land for me. But at the end, I have to measure all of it. So I think I want to give this movie a fair shot. 7 out of 10. There are things that work in this movie, and this movie sticks with you. This movie makes you think, it makes you talk, and that's a good thing. That's what you want from a film. You want to remember it after, and I definitely did. Oh, and there's the bits with the sleeping pills, which kind of was a very creepy scene as well. Danny takes the sleeping pill from Josh, and she has a nightmare of the group leaving her, and then she sees her family, and it's very creepy, and like this black smoke comes out, and it was a very unsettling scene. And then things kind of go back to being slow and bright and all that. And then later on, she asks for a sleeping pill again, and I'm like, oh no, not again. With that, make sure you guys leave a comment. Tell me what you think about Midsommar. If you guys are new here, make sure you subscribe and like and comment. Let me know what you think. And if you want to support the channel, I have a book that's for sale. It's called Orbs in the Attic. It's a horror novel. It's available on Amazon. Link in the description. Everybody, see you next time. Bye.